we had a body that we would hit and record the sounds on it. The body had fat, muscle, and bones, and we would hit that and record it and layer those in. Because there's a UFC shirt that I have that my wife got me that says on the back, "As real as it gets." And I'm like, that's the motto for this movie across the board.
You've done so many sports projects throughout your film career, even in front of the camera now.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
Why was the timing now to do something like this?
Well, it was just like, it was something that, Dwayne brought to me, it brought to my attention in 2019. And then ever since then, I hadn't stopped thinking about it, And it was the kind of thing where I was just like, I knew that there was a reason that he wanted to tell this story that was like very deep. And I wanted to go there with him because I saw the same thing in Mark, And it just kind of was like, you know what? I'm gonna see if this can happen right now, And it's like, you can't really answer the question because it happened when it should have happened, The fact is that everybody was in the place that they had to be to properly tell the story, And so it couldn't have happened any earlier, couldn't have happened any later. It was the perfect time for it. And also it was just like, it was like he put so much muscle to play this part. He trained to figure out how to do this stuff, and it was really just awesome to be a part of and witness,
Yeah, you've now directed so many athletes. Ryan Bader has a amazing performance.
Yeah.
Usyk is in there doing his
Usyk
thing.
is great too.
You've done Kevin Garnett.
I know.
Why are you able to get great performances out of all these athletes? And who's the best athlete turned actor you've gotten to direct?
That's a tough one. Of course it's like right now it has to be Ryan because that's like he goes through some stuff in this movie. But Garnett he's amazing. It's just like, but it's so fresh as Ryan's in my head right now. But Garnett is killer. I don't know. I think it's just the matter of I'm just trying to understand somebody, and I'm just trying I'll talk to them. I'll try to see how they speak and just understand what it is that what makes them tick a little bit. And then my goal is to just try and get as much of them out as possible with as little self-consciousness there so that they can just be, And that means relieving the pressure, which is it for us. I think for an athlete in particular is probably very interesting because it's a life of pressure. So if you go into an environment where there's no mistakes, everything you do is leading to a positive outcome, which is your final performance. I think that element of it is really exciting for them, And then at the same time, it's a different muscle that they're getting an opportunity to stretch, Because you have to perform all the time as an athlete, but just in a different way. And so I think that element is always very interesting. And for me, it was just very important that there were real fighters in this movie. Because you just can't make that up. You can't fake it. They bring an energy and a vibe, and it's also you can ask them a question well, what would happen here, and they can answer it. And it's it just adds an element of just authenticity to the world and just to what's happening.
What's the hardest part of shooting such a violent sport? Because that opening scene.
Oh my God,
it's cringy to watch.
And that was the thing. I didn't know if I was going to be able to because I didn't want to use any computer graphics to do. I wanted it all to be in camera, and so that meant figuring out how to shoot it in a way that allowed me to do that, where it didn't look like I was tricking anybody. That was all I want. I wanted it to feel as visceral as it would if you were to watch it in real life. And so that meant stay on the outside. Don't go in the ring. This is if you were there, you'd have this point of view. So you're getting actually the best view of these fights possible because you're right at the ring. And so that was really difficult in working with Greg Rementa, the stunt coordinator, to really kind of condense these fights into the highlights because they're long. Boz would always joke, I won all my fights in the first round. He goes, because they were 30-minute rounds. And I'm just that's insane. And so we wanted to be very truthful to how they were. But I remember while I was writing, I would just have the fights on, and I had the sound off. And I remember looking over and just thinking, oh, I can do that. You know, because when I didn't hear the sound and you just saw the cameras moving and you realize that like the way MMA is, it's very different than boxing, because boxing is very choreographed in the sense that like you can shoot it that way. But MMA, you can only fake so much. There's grappling, there's getting picked up and thrown down.
Knees to the head.
Yeah, knees to the head. So it's like figuring out ways to show that in a way that was realistic, I thought was an amazing challenge. Sorry for the sound bump. But I found that as a really interesting challenge to be like, how can I make this as real as possible? You know, because there's a UFC shirt that I have that my wife got me that says on the back, as real as it gets. And I'm like, that's the motto for this movie across the board.
Sound design brought it there too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like another thing was like every punch is just a little different. And there's layers to the punch. There's the first initial hit, but then there's a hit after, below the skin, and then into the bone. So we literally would layer these punches. There's so many sounds that go into one. And we always made sure that they were you never heard the same one back to back. So you would always hear them changing. So it's alive and it's moving. And we had a body that we would hit and record the sounds on it. The body had fat, muscle, and bones, and we would hit that and record it and layer those in with other sounds and stuff like that. And then Nala's score, which is incredible. And she came in with adding drums at certain points, or guitar hits, or piano bangs, and it's all working together to just put you into the mindset of what that would actually feel like. Because that's what I wanted this movie to do, is what does it feel like to be a fighter? That's what I want to try. And that means you're going to see what it feels like in the ring, but more importantly, what are they doing outside and what are they taking into the ring with them, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, you accomplished that.
Oh,
congrats
thank you.
on the film.
Appreciate it.
I'm sure we're going to be seeing you all award season.
Oh, man.
Collecting some hardware.
I appreciate that.
Last question I want to ask you really quickly. There's a lot of famous siblings in sports.
Yes.
And filmmaking is a sport of its own.
Yeah.
So if you had to compare yourself to famous sports siblings, who would you say you and your brother are?
Right now I don't know. I guess I would have to go with the Klitschko brothers, you know, just because they both were doing the same thing in the same arena. So makes sense.
Yeah. And beating people up.
Exactly. In different ways.